Alright guys, what is going on? It is Hermes. Let's get right into it. The video is just a bit of a montage of me dying at the start of the season. Enjoy. But let's get into the video. So today we are going to be, the title of the video, as you can see, is Who Sold Australia's Soul? Now, Australia, if you're not aware, is a very energy rich, resource rich, and is actually one of the wealthiest nations on earth. So it begs the question, which is why I'm making this video, why can't we as Aussies afford to live here anymore? Power prices are going up, fuel is expensive, and young people are, I just saw a post on X, if you're younger than probably watching this video, you're gonna have to wait 21 years until you can afford to put a deposit on a home. Now, I don't think the housing market is as big of an issue as most people claim it is, because as someone who works in it, I have a property, I don't think the housing is as bad. Houses aren't gonna just keep going up until one day every house is like $10 million, right? It's just never gonna fucking happen. House prices like my parents' house, for example, it's like 20 minutes out of the CBD. It's about $1.7 to $2 million. And this isn't going to get to a $10 million home. It's never gonna happen. It might get to a $3 million home, maybe, right? As development happens further out, that if you have the money, you can live closer to the city, but it's not gonna be a $10 million home, right? At $3 million, it's not gonna be very affordable for most people. However, it's gonna get to a point where it'll just plateau and house prices growth will be extremely slow. At the moment, growth is like, your house theoretically should double every 10 years. It doesn't really do that anymore, okay? So growth is gonna slow, or we're gonna see more dips and rises, and it will become sort of a stock market that sees more dips and rises than usual. However, what's not an accident is the policy choices, corporate greed, and weak governments. Now, we have very weak governments. Our Labor government is, in my opinion, not to get political, even though it's a little bit political, is the worst government our country could ever have, or our country specifically. And the fact that we are where we are is simply because of the government. The government rules the country, right? So whatever the government does directly affects how we live our lives. Now, Australia didn't lose its so-called soul overnight. It was sold deal by deal, asset by asset, to the highest bidder. And now that we're the ones paying for it. So what I mean by that is our energy is all sold off. Like, there's no Australian company that owns an energy company. Energy Australia, for fuck's sake, it literally has Australia in the name, is not owned by an Australian company. Let that sink in for 2 seconds, right? Australia and another point which I'm literally about to talk about is resources. If you don't know, we have a lot of coal, a lot of gas, and a lot of sun, and a lot of wind. And we've had decades of wealth, democracy, and relative stability. Tell me how, with all these resources being worth more, life was better 20 years ago when Australian companies and government owned our resources, and how now it's basically turned to shit, right? Somehow millions of Australians are struggling, and this is what I've called, me and ChatGPT kind of came up with the name, the prosperity paradox. That's the paradox. We're rich on paper, but broke at the checkout. And it's just decades of the government privatizing, selling, like China being like, we want this, and the government's like, no, and then China says, well, if you don't give it to us, we're just gonna do this and do that. and our bitch government, probably Labor, goes, even Liberal. I'm a Liberal supporter, but to be honest with you, Liberal does make some fucked up decisions about our systems in our country. And don't get me wrong, this is both governments. Both governments are shit. I mentioned this prior. I did not want to vote for either government this year. Both governments were fucking disgusting. However, Liberal tends to help small businesses a little bit more. Labor tends to help the everyday person. However, I don't even know what the fuck sort of world we're living in at the moment, where just everybody's fucked. Literally everybody's fucked, right? Power prices are going up between 8 and 10%. Now, my note here is actually incorrect. Some of these bills in the next month or two are going to rise by over 30 fucking percent. An extra $800 a year, if not more, and potentially $1,000 a year, despite our coal, gas, solar, and wind resources. The supernormal profits and barely any government pushback has caused all these energy companies to have over $11 billion in profit. Now, Punter's Politics, if you don't know, he's a fucking legend. He mainly focuses on energy, but generally it's just political. He doesn't have a side. He just tells it how it is, and a lot of how just the government's fucked in general. There's one hell of a blame. This is from him. Oh fuck, I don't have the quote. There's one hell of a blame game. I'm gonna pop it up. And it's, yeah, pop up on screen the Punter's Politics clip. All right. Now, fuel prices. Average petrol price hit $1.82 in early 2025. Worst levels in over 2 decades when adjusting for the weak Aussie dollar. Right? 2/3 of every litre is tax. So when you're paying $1.82, 67 cents is tax and GST. Like, what the fuck? And most of that hits regional. Most of that hits regional and working class Aussies. So if you don't know, if you live in rural Victoria, rural anywhere, right? The more rural you go, the harder it is. Petrol in some of these rural places are like $5 a litre. $5 a litre. Now, given I hope most of these people don't really drive extremely far, but that's crazy, right? July 2024 tax cuts gave average workers $1,500. Now, sorry, just back on fuel. More expensive fuel, just so everyone knows, affects food, freight, trade, and the cost of living in general. If petrol's $5 a litre, or $2 a litre, right? And toll companies and these freight companies that have to transport everything, these guys just bump up the price. So Coles, who you might get, generally it might cost them $10 to get a bag of apples, right? Whereas if petrol's more expensive, it might cost Coles $12 a bag of apples. And now we're paying, instead of us paying $13 a bag of apples, we're now paying $16 a bag of apples. You know what I mean? That's how it all works. It's all a flow-on effect, right? Tax cuts. July 2024 tax cuts gave average workers $1,500 back. But if you realize it's really not that. Like $1,000, that's fucked. It's nothing. Real wages are up 1%, but it's not enough when housing and energy costs are rising faster. That's the problem, right? Cost of living is going up. Yes, Labor is giving you tax cuts, right? But not really, right? Because you're getting $1,500 a year back, but your groceries have gone up $800 over the year. Your energy bills have gone up $1,000 over the year, right? So really, that extra $1,500 they've given you just gets chewed up in everything else. Housing affordability, we've already spoken about. 50% of income goes to mortgages and 33% of income goes to housing. The highest it's ever been. And the first home buyer needs over 10 years to save, and apparently in 10 years it's going to be 20 years. So anyway, we all know about that. I don't think housing is the issue in Australia. I really, really don't think that housing is the issue. The government has thrown band-aids as energy bill relief, rent assistance, cheaper medicine, and tax cuts. But it's not fixing anything. Energy is still rigged, housing is still cooked, and the lobbying is still rampant. Studies have shown fossil fuel lobbying and revolving door. So a lot of these politicians that these energy companies go into, right? So say, for example, BHP, they want to go mine a certain place. Government says, yep, go for it. Then they say, we want to sell it to China for this price, and then they'll sell it back to us at this price. Government says, no, you can't do that. So what do? These fucking politicians push the law through anyway, then quit, and then go work for these energy companies. Make it make sense. Right? So they'll take their $200,000 a year, they'll push through these laws that then these energy companies will make billions of dollars, and then they'll go work for these energy companies at $600,000 a year. Right? Talk about criminals. Who's the real criminal around here? Tell you who it's not, me and you. Renewables, $22 billion was committed to a future made in Australia plan. I haven't even seen this thing. I haven't even seen it. We've got the sun, we've got the wind, and we've got the tech. We just need the guts to break free from fossil. Not going to happen, right? So this isn't about politics. It's not about the left or the right government. It's about who benefits from the system and who gets screwed, which we are getting screwed. They sold off our power. They've sold off our future. And no one thought to ask a fucking Australian, what's it like living here? These politicians are giving themselves pay rises left and right. Right? They're filling their pockets with money. They're selling everything to foreign countries. They're fucking every single one of us. And then no one has the balls. But the thing is that no one has the guts to go, this is the problem. The government's not going to tell you where the real problem is, right? Because they're too busy trying to fucking pay off the debt that they acquired. The problem at the moment is we're in a fucking shit situation with a government who doesn't know how to save money, they spend money. A Labor government has to increase your taxes, has to increase everything around you so that they can pay off the debt that they create, which is fucked in my opinion. Anyway, just to give you guys an idea of what is going on in this world, it is not the housing, it's the government, it's corporate greed, and it's politicians. They are the issue, and they are why this country and you can't get ahead. They are why when you are getting paid, you feel like it's going nowhere. People are working 12-hour days. They're working 2 jobs just to pay rent and buy groceries. No one goes out anymore. No one parties. No one clubs. No one goes to the movies. Right? No one does anything. But costs are going to keep going up because if no one buys anything, companies need to charge more. If nobody is providing any money into the economy because we're all staying home and watching Netflix and paying our mortgage and just eating, right? There is no economy. Banks, businesses shut. The government has control over you, right? That's how these North Koreas or South Korea, I don't know, start, because the government has too much control. But in our case, it's not the government who has any control. Our government sold control to other countries. So other countries have control over Australia, which in turn fucks the government up, in turn fucks us up. Anyway, fuck it. I could talk about this for 3 hours. Basically, we're fucked, and I love living in Australia.